This is Loose Change. Check out our spring and summer catalog. I would if I were you. We have that, don't we, Greg? Hi, I'm Jim Evans. Thanks for joining us, and you will be glad you did. Another terrific guest coming right up. We have them for you every show. They just keep coming. We keep bringing them for you. So I'm sitting with the writers, my writing staff, our writing staff. It's like, hey, let's try and come up with something a little bit different off the top. So we're sitting around, and no one can think of anything. So here we go again. It's the usual break. I'm laying at home on the couch. TV's on. I'm dozing in and out. I wake up and I see this show, what I think is a show about self-defense. People were punching, kicking, elbowing. Then I look closer. It's just a Trump rally. That's all it was. Nothing more than that. Time to rally around the Cleveland Browns. They've been doing a lot of stuff here. Of course, recently they picked up Redskins quarterback RG3, Robert Griffin, who's had a history of injuries, and I'm thinking, it's just what we need. More broken down leadership from Washington, right? Browns had 14 picks in the NFL draft. They took 4 wide receivers. A lot of people were really excited about that, including the Ohio Turnpike Commission. They sent the top pick, wide receiver Corey Coleman, an easy pass, and he dropped it. And you may have heard that Walmart is closing 170 stores. And the company says it's going to affect a lot of people for sure, workers as well as customers. And they could really check out the impact on them on the company's TV channel, the Home Shoplifting Network. Hey, Canfield boys basketball coach Todd Muckleroy joins us next, right here on Loose Change. I'd hang around if I were you. It's good.
Are you a lawyer? Great. You won't have any trouble navigating this unwieldy satellite contract. But for the rest of us, it's easy to get lost in a morass of early termination fees, upcharges, and restrictions. Still thinking of switching to satellite? Better call legal.
With television service from Armstrong, there's no dense legalese to sort through. Armstrong, one wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans. See, I wasn't kidding. I told you we had a terrific guest here. I had the pleasure to be joined by Canfield boys basketball coach Todd Muckleroy. Coach, thanks for being here and for your time. It's great to see you. And as we like to do off the top, just for those who don't know, if you could give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you went to school, and how you got into your coaching career path. And I'll go sit with the kids for a while, and then I'll be back and join you. So.
Well, you'll probably have a good time talking to them just like you would me. But, you know, this whole journey started about, my goodness, probably when I was about 20 years old. I grew up in Salem. I was born in Salem, Ohio. I grew up kind of on the border of Salem and Beloit in West Branch. I went to West Branch High School and had a great career there and a great experience just learning about academics, athletics, and really the importance of being an active individual in all 3 seasons. And you know, from there I had some good friends and still that I have today, and from there it really got me involved in sports. And it wasn't long after graduation from West Branch High School in 1992 that I realized that sports was probably only going to take me so far as a player. And so I was lucky enough about '94 to coach a junior high basketball team at West Branch, and it really got me thinking that maybe education was the way to go. And while teaching, also coaching would be something that would be fun to do, because like I said, there's only sports was only going to take me so far actively, but really to coach and to really feel the mental side of it was something that was just really a rush to coach young kids that really weren't too much younger than me at the junior high level, but as being about a 20-year-old kid. From there, I went to college and really concentrated on my studies. Had a little bit of an opportunity in 1993, going back a little bit, to play football at Mount Union. So I got some experience there at the collegiate level. Even though you'd think that basketball would be my thing, football was kind of my thing, just because I was the right size for it, and I wasn't blessed with great height to play basketball at the next level. But from there I started to realize that I needed to prioritize my studies, and I was there at Mount for 1 year. Then I transferred to the University of Akron, where it kind of placed me in the greater Akron area. Along that journey, I met a young lady who really I knew was going to be, hopefully the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So socially, I was kind of, becoming well-rounded. And then, right out of college, around 2000, I got a teaching job at a correctional facility, no less, in Akron, Ohio. And I was coaching at Firestone as a volunteer assistant coach and in the Akron area, and really understood what it meant to coach really good athletes in the Akron city area. And from there, my coaching resume started to build, and then I went to I was lucky enough to get a teaching job at Streetsboro, and where I would spend 8 years there, 5 years as the head coach. My social life was continuing to build as I'd be married, and then I would be fortunate enough to have children. And at that point in time, it was kind of one of those things where at my 8th year in 2010 at Streetsboro, I was just looking for a change. And my mom called me from Canfield and said that the Canfield job was coming open. And I called, inquired about it, and I talked to Mr. Greg Cooper, our athletic director now, and he said to come interview. And I came and interviewed, and that was a long process. But here we are now. 6 years later? And here I am. 6 years the head coach.
Doing great things.
And teaching, and my kids are in a great school, a great community. I'm still married, even though I've been coaching for over 10 years as the head coach. And it was one of those things where we're in a spot right now where there's been some bumps. There's no doubt about it in the road as far as the things that we need to do, an adjustment to my schedule mostly. But we're happy to be here, and this is where I am now. So it's just been a lot of things that have come together to be where I am right now.
Well, you've had a lot of great experiences along the way,
There's no doubt.
and certainly you knew coming into Canfield you were filling big shoes with John Cullen leaving. What were your thoughts about that at the time?
Well, Coach Cullen and I are good friends, and we spent a lot of time together planning the MVCA All-Star Game, and my high school basketball coach Bob McCoskey was good friends with Coach John Cullen. So the style that I learned from Coach McCoskey probably wasn't different than what Coach McCoskey was talking to John Cullen about on the golf course on the weekends. So I learned from my high school basketball coach. I think that by default, the things that I've learned and the things that I've done with my friends and my teammates back in the day. But what a great opportunity, and and a lot of people have asked me about Coach Cullen, and in fact on the way here I was talking to my son, and I was asking him. I just asked him in the car, and he had to look up some information for me because nobody knows who took over for John Wooden when he left the UCLA program. And it was Gene Bartow. But anyway, I had to look that up. But it's certainly coming into a program, the pressure's on because Coach John Cullen really did a great job there, and he was there for 28 years. So he must have been doing something right.
Exactly.
But for him as a person, to talk to him, you understand that he's a person's person. He's not all about basketball, but he is all about basketball. And I think that's some of the best, as he's kind of like an everyman, to where he can have a normal conversation with a coach who, with me as a young coach, probably doesn't realize, Coach Cullen doesn't, that he's kind of like an unofficial mentor to me. And I've been very fortunate to have some very good mentors in my days in coaching, or else I probably wouldn't be coaching still today.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Coach McCoskey. Of course, when I started my broadcasting career, I was announcing both Salem and West Branch basketball and football. So I had the experience at both. And I know it was such a big rivalry. But anyway, I had a nice relationship with Coach McCoskey at that time. Obviously, you took things from him, to what you're doing now. Anybody else that influenced you along the way?
Well, when I was an assistant coach at Streetsboro, I had a guy by the name of Bruce Thomas who I coached with, who just had really a good X's and O's guy, and really someone who could really break down the game, and really, forced me to be a tactician, as someone who really break down the game. And felt spending a lot of time was really the key to success of being a good coach. You know, obviously Coach McCoskey, you know, when I was coaching in the Portage County, you know, I had young men, I guess we'll call them, and John Herchek at Waterloo and Marty Hill at Wyndham. You know, Marty Hill is, you know, has amassed over 500 wins as a high school head coach, and those are the guys that I got to see twice a year in games and got to communicate with and really rub elbows with in our meetings and our league meetings. So, you know, there are some guys right there. They know how to do it and they know how to do it right. So, you know, regardless of whether I was talking to them every day or maybe once or twice a month, that's the influence that I was getting over time.
So yeah, you could pick up not only for the coaches you work with, but coaches you
Absolutely.
coach against.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, we're breaking down film, and you know, it's not like we just see the games. I mean, we keep those games forever on DVD or VHS, and we go back and we say, hey, you know, what was it that Coach Marty Hill was running there defensively that I can go back to and I can watch and maybe save it for another game 1, 2, 3 years in the future.
What in your mind makes a good basketball coach?
This day and age, I believe it's adaptability. I really think that, you know, being able to adjust to the student athlete, being able to adjust to the many things that you have to deal with, not just as a coach, but as a teacher, as an individual. I think that, you know, when you walk out onto that court for 2 hours for practice, or it's a game for 2 hours, you've really got to compartmentalize everything that you've had to deal with throughout the course of that day to put your best foot forward for those kids. But I think that, you know, learning under Coach McCoskey and learning under, you know, that's old school learning right there. And you know, Coach McCoskey yelled at everybody, and we were okay with that.
He yelled at me.
Yeah, he yelled at everybody. And you know, he was a guy who really treated everybody the same. And as much as that worked back in the day, it doesn't work now that way.
Okay.
And I think that you have to really be an individual who has to look at each player and say, well, here's a guy right here that you probably have to put your arm around and maybe whisper at him a little bit to tell him what he needs to do better. You might have one guy that you could yell at and maybe get after and maybe even make an example of every now and then. And there's maybe some kids that maybe you just need to push off to an assistant coach and maybe they communicate with that person better. So it's really you got to be so interpersonal and knowing each player individually.
Is that just because the kids have changed or the style of coaching has changed, or, you know, one taking care of the other?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think kids have changed. I think some of as a representative of Canfield schools or Streetsboro schools or wherever, I think that you know, you leave yourself open to a little bit of liability if you would do some things that coaches would do 20 years ago. But you know, you always want to maintain that professionalism with kids, with parents. You know, and especially at a place like Canfield, where you seem to be under the microscope quite a bit, not just as a coach, but certainly as a teacher and as an individual in moral character.
High standards, sure.
Sure.
And I would think, you know, just getting to know you and as I have, that you know, most good coaches, you're still learning and growing as a coach as you go.
Sure. I don't think you'll. You know, I'm very reluctant to believe that I'm ever going to be an expert in this game. I'm always learning, and I think that has something to do with always making sure you want to get better.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny, with each year you're always thinking, you know, what am I going to do next year? Because doing the same thing every single year might not work. I mean, and that's the fun of coaching. I mean, that's really, you know, when you can say, wow, maybe next year will be more of an open post style of an offense. We'll shoot the ball from the outside a little bit more. That's the fun in coaching, really, you know, varying it up a little, just a little bit.
We're going to take a break and come back and talk more hoops.
Sure,
School,
great.
that type of thing. Canfield basketball coach Todd Muckleroy. We'll be right back here on Loose Change right after this.
Turn your whole home on to high-definition programming. With Armstrong's HD digital adapter, it's easier and more affordable than ever. The HD TV in the kitchen? Finally get high-definition picture and sound. The HD TV in the family room? Add all your favorite high-def channels at a price you can afford. Our HDDA now features an on-screen guide. To order your HD digital adapters, visit ArmstrongOneWire.com/turniton. Armstrong, One Wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change, along with Canfield boys basketball coach Todd Muckleroy. I'm Jim Evans, and Coach, I've had the great pleasure to announce a lot of your games here along the way since you've been at Canfield, and certainly before with Coach Cullen. It's always fun to call your games, and you guys, both Coach Cullen and yourself, you know, you have to feel fortunate. I think that you seemingly almost always have a really good group of young men to work with over there. Talk about that.
Yeah, you know, I think that one of the things that, you know, I try to instill into my players is the fact that, you know, working hard is going to keep you close in any game. And I realize that, you know, sometimes when you're playing against a Harding, that philosophy tends to fall short sometimes when you're just dealing with like some just really incredible athletes. But I think that, you know, teaching young men to really persevere and to really stay the course and to control the things that you can control, attitude, effort, work ethic. I think that, you know, those are life lessons that certainly help my players on the basketball court, but always just help them in life. And, you know, we got smart kids at Canfield. I mean, they're always in thought process. They're always thinking 2-3 plays ahead. And that's something that is really tough to teach players. But if they already have the cerebral ability to do that, then that helps you out as a coach. You know, there's been often times when my players have made me look like a better coach.
Right, sure.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, certainly I don't have an ego that's going to think that I control every aspect of the game. In fact, I tell my players all the time, I said, hey, no pressure on you guys. When we win, it's you. When we lose, it's me. Because I don't want them to have to deal with the pressures of what could have been had they done something different. I'll take the heat. I think that's my responsibility as a coach and a professional, and to really correct and to make sure I put them in the best position possible in order to win a game.
Yeah, and you just touched on what I was going to get into next, and so anyway, but every high school coach tells me this, and how, you know, sports at this level, it's more than, I mean, it's about going out competing and winning, but it's so much more than that. And again, life lessons and just having that experience to be able to help mold young people to move forward into adulthood.
It's really easy to get caught up in winning and losing. There's no doubt about it, because you know what? I think that I've probably fallen victim of that sometimes.
Yeah, sure, that would be natural.
When you're dealing with a team that has so many expectations on them to win, and that any kind of setback can really cause you to kind of, you know, maybe divert in the wrong direction. But I think that in this high-stakes game of education and athletics, I think that it is most important to be thinking about the young man who's going to do more than just play basketball and be a student at Canfield High School. And I think that's sometimes, you know, during a season, it definitely is tough. But you know, it takes a pretty good support group from a coaching standpoint. And I've talked about my wife already, and even my mom and my, you know, my parents have really instilled in me that, you know, hey, maybe you need to throttle back a little bit and really focus on and hit the reset button. And remember, these young men, they're just kids.
Yep.
And they've got a lot more to live, and you don't want to put bad thoughts in their heads and to maybe turn them away from what can be a great experience and from November to March, and really carry that on to the rest of their lives.
Yeah, you know, sure, you know, I'll plead guilty to it. You know, we come to do the game night, and that's all we're thinking about. But you know, you have young people who had a whole day in school, you know, leading up to that. You don't know what's going on during the day leading up to the game and what their mindset might be.
Yeah, you know, and I go back to just trying to compartmentalize all those things that they did throughout the day, and you know, we have a lot of life challenges that we have in the course of a day, and sometimes, and I tell them, when you hit the gym doors, just try to forget all about that.
That's
because
right.
For 2 hours, this is your world, and it's really where you should thrive and put a smile on your face, because you know what, there's a lot of people out there that don't have the same luxury of being a part of a team and being part of just a family. That I try to really breed that thought of being a close-knit family, because after all, we're together for a long time.
Absolutely.
And we wanted it to be a good experience, not a miserable experience.
And you know, as you know, high school sports has changed to various degrees where, depending on the sport, but it's almost become close to a year-round job.
There's no doubt. It's much different. And again, 25 years since I've played, and you know, it was you know, football season was football season. You were done.
Yeah.
If you made the playoffs,
Yeah,
there was a little bit of an overlap. basketball season was basketball season, and then you started baseball. And now it's really become, these young men and women are really being tugged in a lot of different directions. And sometimes as a coach, that's tough. But, again, at Canfield High School, I'm very fortunate to work with just some great coaches, and Coach Pavlansky, Coach Koenig, and Coach Conley, and a number of different programs that are very, they're cheerleaders for all programs. We want our kids to be involved in as many things as possible throughout the given year. Now, basketball and wrestling, that's going to be tough because it is in the same season. Right. But certainly with football and baseball and basketball being wedged in between there, we're really encouraging a lot of athletes to say, yeah, we think you need to play baseball. Definitely think you should play football as well, and baseball, and try to get a well-rounded athlete if that's possible to do.
Yeah. You kind of touched a little bit in our first segment, but I'll come back to it. From your perspective, how has the game changed, or maybe even the kids changed from when you played to now, and what are the challenges that you face as a coach as a result?
I think that from my challenges as a student athlete, I think that there's just a lot more. I think there's a lot more opportunity dangling in front of these kids today.
Okay. Everybody says that.
And that's something that is certainly a credit to the kids, because when I look at some of these young men and women at Canfield High School, they're achieving beyond heights of what I think I could have done as a student athlete. And I think sometimes the challenge is being able to challenge them so they don't really get bored. And they're on the hardwood for a while, and we're challenging them in that particular sector and keeping them engaged. But they know that there could be something else different for them to go to. So you really have to keep them engaged for X amount of months, and to really be creative as a coach to keep them enthused with it. And that's like I said, that's our challenge as a coaching staff. And that's a fun challenge. Yeah. And really to keep them, because they could go in another direction. They could be working. I can remember as a student athlete, I didn't have to work. I mean, I worked in the summertime, and that's all. And kids are working today. Yeah. They see the importance of maybe helping their family and supporting their family, or just getting some job skills to help them for later in life. So you've got to deal with that a little bit. But they're just very busy individuals.
I asked that question to almost every coach, to a man and woman. One thing they all bring up in terms of how things have changed is social media for kids today, and how that's had an effect, and some of them have to deal with that as coaches as a result.
I think you have to, and I think that, here I am, I'm 41 years old, and I'm not totally closed off to social media, but I think that you have to watch. You have to make sure that you're aware, and you're really telling them the importance of doing things. And when you do things, it's out there, it's permanent, even though you may have deleted it. And you certainly don't want to do something and making a rash decision, in social media that would hurt your chances of any placement somewhere else, like in a college or in a job position. And
we just saw that in the NFL draft.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's become such a staple of our society that social media is there, that we don't realize what is out there once it's out there. And maybe that's a red flag to say that we're becoming a little too comfortable with it. But I think as coaches and teachers, I think we always have to remind our student athletes, and just students altogether, that you have to be very careful about this. And it's not just coming from an old guy that had no idea what social media was, or doesn't really use it too much today, but seeing by the NFL draft, by a number of other situations, of what can turn bad if it gets to that point.
Yeah, he's an old guy. Right. It varies from district to district. It's specific to each district. But do you feel at the high school level now there's more pressure on coaches to win, as maybe compared to when you played or before, or is it? About
You know, I
saying,
think that
if you can even gauge that.
yeah, I mean, I think so. I think the pressure really comes. I know for me anyway,
From
the pressure
within.
comes from within. But I think that as long as I think that in a lot of different cases, I think in school districts, as long as you're treating kids right, I think that really goes a long way.
Right.
Because you know what, in public schools, the success is cyclical. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're going to have down years, but I think that I would hope that if I know there's some pressure if we talk about federal league teams and things like that. Certainly, I think there's some pressure there that they have to win, but they also have some pretty large enrollment figures too that they can work with those kids. But I think that I think that the one thing that in my program that I promise is the fact that you're going to get a hardworking group on the court, and you're going to get a hardworking group that is going to make our school proud by making sure we act the right way when we win, and making sure that we're humble and we're good sports if we do tend to have a setback. And I think that's where coaches, we have to use as teachable moments to be good winners and to be I guess in a sense to be good losers as well.
Yeah.
But because there are a lot of life lessons and things to learn when you lose, not just in basketball, but maybe if you don't get that big job that you interviewed for or that big promotion. We
have less than a moment left, and we talk about our area being a football area, but
Sure.
And it's been a while since we've had a state basketball champ. But I always tell people we still have good basketball in our area. We've got great coaches, good kids, and they go out and they compete and they play hard, and that's what it comes down to.
Sure, nothing like Northeast Ohio. I'll tell you that everyone I talked to, like that was outside of the Northeast Ohio area and other areas of the country, they totally. They're almost jealous of Northeast Ohio sports. And I was a football player and a basketball player and a baseball player. And I've seen all of those things kind of come together. And I'm very proud of this area. I'm very proud of Canfield. And I'm very proud of my family to be here, a part of this wonderful community.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be involved with your games, and I look forward to doing that in the future. Thanks so much for your time. Great seeing you, Todd.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here.
Todd Muckleroy will be back to wrap things up right after this.
Armstrong Local Programming features our community like no one else. Meet your friends and neighbors at special events. Find the perfect pet. Celebrate our region's rich history or enjoy our natural wonders. Armstrong Local Programming is available online, on demand, and on your local Armstrong channel. Find the complete program schedule at ArmstrongOneWire.com. Local programming, exclusively from Armstrong. One Wire, infinite possibilities.
Well, hey, that was good, huh? Yep. That's going to do it for our show. As always, thanks so much to Greg Roten and, of course, to Todd Muckleroy, and to you as well for watching. I'm Jim Evans. We'll catch you next time right here on Loose Change. Yeah, we will.